If you're a mom of young kids or you're thinking about becoming a mom, you're going to want to listen to this episode. Today on the podcast, we're talking to Kellyn Oftedahl about motherhood and business. We are talking about the challenges, we are talking about the magic, and you are not going to want to miss any of it. Kellyn is a wedding and lifestyle photographer based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. She's a wife, a mom, an adventure lover, and a coffee drinker. Aren't we all, especially the moms? In her work, she aims to showcase her clients' unique personalities and dynamics in an authentic and artistic way. She's always striving to be in the moment, whether she's playing on the floor with her 1-year-old or out shooting a 10-hour wedding day, and she encourages her clients to do the same. In life, she aims to be challenged. She's always growing and learning so that she can better serve those around her. So, Kellyn, welcome to the podcast. Hey, my name is Sylvia B, and I am obsessed with business, marketing, and as an Enneagram Type 4, what makes you stand out from the crowd. I'm a business and mindset coach, wedding photographer, ex-engineer, and mom to 2 little boys. I teach photographers and creatives how to find success in their passion without sacrificing your values or identity, and bring in experts from all walks of life who will transform the way you see your business and help you build a life that truly fills your soul. Get ready, because we are going deep into topics from marketing to motherhood to mental health and everything in between. Welcome to Wide Open. Okay, so Kellyn, welcome to the podcast. Before we get into the nitty gritty of all of the mom life, business life balance, tell us who you are, what you do, and how you ended up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So I am a wife, a mom. I'm primarily a wedding photographer, wedding and lifestyle. How I got here was really just taking things one step at a time, following God's leading, and saying yes to things that were a little bit scary at times, and just kind of taking a leap of faith in different scenarios. So it was kind of like a little messy along the way, but actually grew up in a small town of about 4,000 people. Ended up going to school to become an occupational therapy assistant, kind of following in my mom's footsteps a little bit. Yeah, so very different than what I'm doing now, but still kind of a creative profession. And then when I got married, that's kind of what brought me to the Milwaukee area. And that's kind of where my business took off. And like I said before, how I took things one step at a time. I wasn't really looking to make this my everything, until, people just started asking me for photos, and that's kind of how things were before I moved. But at one point I got asked to shoot a wedding and decided to go for it. And from there, just kind of fell in love with it and decided, that's what I wanted to do. So yeah, a lot of things aren't like what I pictured I would be, based on what I said I wanted to be when I grew up as a little kid. But I'm super grateful for where I'm at today.
Oh my gosh, I love that. You might not know this about me, but I actually have a degree in electrical engineering. So I completely get how'd we end up here? Okay, I'm good with this. I'm happy.
Yes, totally. Yep.
Yes. So you started your business before you became a mom.
Yeah.
How long have you been kind of doing the mom business thing? Where are you at with your journey right now?
Yeah. Good question. So I think the mom business overlap is actually pretty recent. So I have, one child, my son, he's a little over 1 year old. So it's and then the business itself is, I would say, somewhat young. From when I went full time, I'm, a little over 3 years now into my full-time business. But yeah, overlapping mom and business is, pretty much been about a year now. So, but it's been a whirlwind for sure.
Yeah. So what were some of the changes that kind of came with that when you were doing business? You said full-time for 3 years?
Yes. Yep. That's kind of when I dove into.
Yeah. Okay. So you kind of had your routines, you had kind of the way that you do things figured out, and then baby comes along. What was that like for you?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It's funny because especially if you're a wedding photographer, you tend to book out, your schedule about a year or more in advance. And so I really didn't anticipate what that overlap would look like as I was booking weddings. I'm like, this is great. Business is growing, and you just can't imagine what it's like. And definitely this last year has been one of the hardest seasons for sure. Just, being thrown into it and not knowing what to expect. And I think just like, it's the balance of, family time and, let me back up a little bit. So one of the reasons why I think I pursued photography and made that switch is because I knew it would be flexible, so that I could be home with my family, like as I anticipated growing a family. That's really important to me. And so while I love photography, I also love the flexibility aspect of it. And that can also be like a pitfall in itself. Like when you run your own business and you are flexible, like it's kind of like you can fall into the trap of the more you work, the more money you get, or, that kind of thing that a lot of business owners
the
fall
hustle
into.
culture.
Yes, exactly. And so, I think just finding that balance has been really challenging.
Yeah, I bet. Especially when you started with so much more time than you have after becoming a mom. It's so challenging to figure out like where to put your time. So this conversation is inspired, as you know, from something you had posted on Instagram about just balancing that like challenge of balancing the two things, because the more you work, the more money you make. But the more you work, the less time you have for your family. So tell me a little bit about what you're currently like, what your goals are in terms of business, in terms of your family life. What's kind of happening in your life right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the year before, like when I was like pregnant, kind of leading up to having a baby, I was anticipating that transition a little bit, and just my mindset was all about like building my business up as much as I could, like kind of digging into that hustle culture a little bit in order so that I could sort of like sit back a little bit and kind of rest on like what I had built in order to be with my family, but still be like running my business. But I do think that I like accidentally carried that mindset after I had a baby. I was still kind of like
hard to let it go.
And it is, it's like there's always more you can be doing. And so that was kind of my mindset. And I think I struggled with just getting mixed up between my goals. Like you mentioned goals before. As I was doing some reflecting on the last year, I realized that I kind of like lost touch of my goals and like what really mattered. And so my goals was still to like hustle and build my business so I could be with my family. And yet here's my family right in front of me. What I realized looking back is that now my mindset is that this is a business first, and not necessarily just like what I want, what I would want it to be also is like a passion project and a hobby and like all these things, I could put into it, but I have to kind of funnel into that mindset. Like it's a business. And like when I take an inquiry or something like that, like, does this make sense for my family? And is it like a good business choice versus just like, oh, this would be fun, or like I would love to go here or something like that. So I have to kind of funnel it through that a little bit more.
Yeah. So you're really setting good boundaries around. It's so easy as a creative to like you said, want it to be a passion project, want it to be a hobby, want it to be like really fun and creative. And it is, but it's so easy to make that kind of the center of your life instead of just letting it be a business that has boundaries around it. I'm hitting my mic already.
For sure. No, you're good. Yeah. And I think too, now that I'm reflecting back on that question a little bit more, when I was talking on Instagram and kind of what got me a little fired up is that I was currently in a business course. So again, kind of in that mindset of like, how I was going to grow my business. And it has been super helpful. I think a lot of the mindset of that course was geared towards maybe probably not moms that wanted to stay home with their families a lot. And so I think I was getting caught up in, again, the hustle. And like there were a lot of action points from that course, which is great. But again, I was like, I need to do this and this and this. And again, losing sight of my goals. And so I was feeling frustrated that like, I wish there were some course out there, some resources that kind of were geared towards people in our season of life that were like, hey, this is great, but also here's how you can like pick and choose like what's the most important thing to focus on maybe.
Exactly. Okay, so if you could like build your perfect course, what are some of the challenges that you've been facing in this first year of motherhood that you would want touched on in that course? Give me some specifics.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think time management is huge. We don't have family super close by right now. And so, trying to find that balance of like when to get work done and like how much do I, have someone else watch my child while I get work done, or does that defeat the purpose of me, like, wanting to stay home with him as much as possible, like that kind of thing has been
Right.
definitely challenging. This past year was a lot of me like hustling during nap times, working late into the night, mostly during busy season, but and so just time management of like how to be efficient or even focus on like what's really important, because you really have like a lot of times little bits of time to work with instead of like
Yes.
a nice long
Like
concentrated
a 4-hour
work
chunk.
day. Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
What
Yep.
I would give for 2 full hours.
I know. Yeah, it's such a different
Yes.
mindset of like, okay, you have this little time, like you have to switch gears, like out of mom mode into like business mode. And sometimes that back and forth is hard too.
Yeah. So with time management, what are some of the things that have been working for you? What is not working for you? You mentioned hustling during nap times and after they go to bed. How is that feeling? Are you still doing any of that? When are you finding work time?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thankfully right now I'm heading into kind of a slower season. And so I've been a little bit more relaxed about that, but like maybe I can get in a workout during a nap instead of editing the whole time.
Wouldn't
But
that be nice? Yes.
so I'm kind of seeing, the end of the tunnel there for this season. But I think back then it was sometimes even like, setting timers or like I kind of have gotten pretty good with my to-do list. They're very detailed now. I've gone back and forth between like just one big chunk of to-do list versus really dividing them up. But I found that when I need to be really efficient, I would divide up my list into like things I can work on during nap time versus like things I'll do not during nap time to also help my brain switch back into mom mode, And so, because when I'm in, my son's up and playing, like I don't want to be on my computer or anything like that, but I'll work in the kitchen, I'll do dishes, like, that's totally fine. And so I have to really have those things ready to go. So when it was time to switch modes, then I could focus on, those couple of things that made sense for that time.
Yeah. When I was in that season of like young kids, stay-at-home mom plus business owner, I'm full-time in my business now and my husband stays home, which is great for everybody.
Yeah.
But when I was in that season of kind of doing both at once, I kind of did something similar where I had a grandparent watch my kids one day out of the week. So I would separate it into, okay, these are nap time activities and these are Tuesday activities. When my kid's not home, this is when we're going to sit down. We're going to do this like really deep work that it's so hard to get into during a nap time. So that's a great tip. It's, that worked really well for me too.
Yeah, for sure. I think on the flip side of that too, you mentioned like time management. So I did have a lot of like late evenings. I also realized I think it's hard as a mom too, because like before you have kids, sometimes if you have a late night, depending on, if you have a flexible work schedule, you might be able to sleep in the next day. That's not usually possible, like, as a young mom. And so it's like, it would get really tiring basically. And so I had to set boundaries on, staying up late or not staying up late. But I ended up trying to pick one night a week at least, that it was like a no work night. And I made sure my husband knew, because I feel like he would just kind of assume that I was working in the evening, and then maybe we would hang out, or usually it's like a stay at home thing, date night, whatever, watch a show together or something, just like non-work related, so I could be fully present. So that was really helpful too, to kind of just like differentiating those things in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. I know for me, I don't know if this is true for you, but for me, it was a lot of like energy too. Like, at what point of the day do I have the best energy that I can like work efficiently, that I can actually get stuff done? And at what point of the day am I just like hitting my head against the wall, not really getting anything done, but spending time in front of my computer, Did that play in for you?
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think the late nights were hard. It was like you get to a certain point and you're just kind of like, everything's taking a little bit longer and you're slowing down. And it's also hard though. I'm like, I'm such I don't know what it is. I kind of like fight sleep, I think, when I think I can get done more things, and it feels like after you're up after a certain point, like past 10 p.m., I'm like, who cares? I can stay up.
Who cares? I'm not going to be well rested tomorrow anyway.
Right. Exactly. But yes, it's so true that you get to a certain point and you're just not as productive. So I think that was I did
Yeah.
realize that at some point. I was like, you know what? I will, even if I don't get it done tonight, like I will get it done so much faster, like tomorrow or something.
Exactly. I found that first of all, I ended up setting a boundary that I don't work past 8 p.m. and that
Oh, that's
has
amazing.
continued. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm just useless. Like I will work at a snail's pace and I could do so much more. I started like, if I really had to get something done, like really, really had to work hard at it, I would get up early the next morning and I would be so much more effective when nobody needed me. I just was just like sitting in front of the computer with my coffee, just getting stuff done. And it was just, I would fly through things at 5 a.m.
Love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Anything after 8, I'm just like staring at my computer doing nothing.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Nope. That's so good.
Yeah. Anything else other than time management that would go in this like hypothetical course that we're now building?
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. I know we need to make this happen now.
Yeah.
I think so. Time management, and then I think I kind of alluded to this earlier, but I would say how to like rank the things that are most important. I forget the term for, you know, when like first responders come and they have to decide like
triage.
What's most important. Triage, yes. So kind of like a triage of your business to do or exactly. I feel like
have you ever heard of the 4-quadrant system for tasks? So like one axis is urgency and then the other one is importance. So you've got this like axis.
Okay.
And then your like urgent important tasks, that's kind of like we're in the ER.
Right? At the top, yeah.
And then you have urgent unimportant tasks. And those you can try to outsource. You can skip them. Yeah. If you're beating yourself up over not posting on social media, maybe you just don't for a little bit until you've caught up. And then there's the less urgent but important. Those I think are the hardest to actually make happen. And then there's the less urgent and not important. The less urgent and not important, usually those can go away. If they can't go away, then they're probably not actually in that quadrant. But the not urgent and important things, stuff like getting the SEO done on your website or auditing your client experience and making sure all your emails say the right things and they don't have typos in them and things like that, like your email templates. Like stuff like that is so important and it saves you so much time in the long run, but it's so hard to like make it get to the top of that list. So did you run into that when you were like triaging your tasks? How did you handle that?
Yes. I think those categories for me have been falling into slow season to-dos. If it does feel like it can wait that long. So I definitely have been keeping like a running tab in my notes app. I think I might need a different system. I don't know. I mostly use the Google Notes. I think it's called Google Keep app or something. I love that it's like color coded. So that's my brain loves that. And so I would have a note just for like, basically slow season to-dos that I just like couldn't even, they could wait, essentially. So I'm excited to dive into those really soon here. And then I also used, I don't know if you've heard of Asana. It's like,
I love Asana. I was about to bring it up.
Okay. Oh, amazing.
I have it open right now on my computer.
Good.
No, we love Asana here. We love the free personal version of Asana.
Yeah, that's been so helpful. Because I just feel like, so this year, besides like being a mom, it's also been my like busiest wedding season, like the most weddings I've had booked. And so it was just a lot. I was like, how do I keep track of like now that I've got a system down of, you know, how I serve my clients? Like it's a lot of things. That's been amazing to like look at it. It kind of tells you like what you need for the day or even like looking at the week and you don't really have to organize those tasks by time. It's like so automated. So that was a huge game changer this year.
That helps so much, especially when you do start to get busy. If you have all of your client tasks in there and you've just already set all of your due dates, and you can just see. I'm punching my mic. I'm getting too excited. No, it's great. But I also put those like longer term tasks in there. Anything that I can't get to right now, I throw it in there, even without a due date, put it in there. And I also put things in there that like they need to get done at a certain time, but it's not right now. I'll just put like I had a task come up in January that I didn't really need to do until the end of the year. And I just put like a November 1st due date on it. So it popped up when November 1st came. And I was like, oh yeah, that. I've got to do that.
Yeah. That's good. I love that.
Asana is a great way to help triage tasks.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's so much more to unlock from Asana that I haven't even touched yet, but it's good.
Yes. Okay. So what else is going in our course? Let's talk about transitioning between business and motherhood.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah. Because you mentioned that earlier. So I'm sure that that's a thing that other people struggle with. If you are not struggling with it, or if you have ways that you work through it, tell us, teach us.
Yes. If I could go back in time for that transition, I think, I would have, set up so many more of these tools in the moment. I feel like when I got there, I was like, okay, I need to again, figure out triage, be more efficient. And I think I didn't realize the importance of those things beforehand because I had more time to do things the slow way or whatever. And so, now I realized how important, how valuable my time is. What else? I think setting yourself up, I think learning to give yourself grace, that was also really important. Like there's only so much you can do to be really efficient and, just do the best you can during the little moments and the nap times and things like that. I think sometimes that gets exhausting trying to be productive every single minute of the day. You just can't, can't do it all. So grace is super huge in my mind.
Absolutely. How about when we're moving from work time into mom time or from mom time into work time? What are some of the ways that we can make that switch?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think back to my list, that's been really helpful for me. I have such a, I don't know that I have true ADHD, but kind of that ADHD brain where you walk into one room and you start on something and you see something else and you move to the other task. And it's really hard for me to all right, this is our time for this task and stuff. So, again, having that list is really helpful to, when, work time is over or I hear him wake up from his nap, I close my computer and, if I need to, I'll glance at my phone or whenever I wake him up, check and see okay, what can I be doing right now? Or, a lot of times too, I just am really conscious about, making sure we have some solid one-on-one playtime or, this past summer when it was nicer out and even into fall, we kind of had a little bit of a routine of when we would go outside and things like that. And so I think that kind of triggered in my brain, just having those routines was really helpful. Okay, nap time's over. We're going to go to the park or, things like that was really helpful.
And that helps your brain switch off and back into your life and not just, not just business mode.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I think eliminating decision fatigue is huge for me. I get so easily paralyzed by okay, what do we do now? And, so having those routines was helpful.
Yeah. Let's talk about other boundaries too, because that is something that you had brought up when we were talking about this conversation in the future. So what are some other than the routine, what are some of the other things that you can do to protect or that you do to protect your time as a mom and protect your time as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think besides, so keeping work time and mom time separate has been helpful. Just not creating burnout. And so watching, making sure you're going to bed at a decent time. Because I think, when I realized that I was losing a lot of sleep, I realized it was impacting both my business time and my time as a mom, just really hard to be fully present in either one. So that's kind of a game changer. I also,
what are some of your, sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
What are some of your red flags that tell you that you're approaching burnout? Because a lot of people don't realize until they're done, they're I can't move any further. I'm exhausted. I can't do anything anymore. What kind of tips you off to I'm about to burn out if I don't change something?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think has a lot to do with emotions. I just tend to get really irritable when I'm short on sleep and grumpy. And so I realize I don't like feeling that way. And so then I'm able to kind of connect that with I need more sleep. Or, sometimes that spills over and affects my husband and we have more tension. And he's pretty quick to point that out to me too. You should probably get more sleep or, figure something out. Yeah. He does. He's actually my best like nap cheerleader because I'm the worst at taking naps. I'm usually like, I need to get stuff done. He's like, no, I'll go to sleep.
No, you need to go to sleep.
Yeah, it's good for me. But yeah, I think kind of just those like people around me are good at pointing it out. And then, unfortunately, when it spills over into my emotions, then I try and turn things around.
Yeah. And like you said earlier, like giving yourself grace around that too, so that you're not just judging yourself and beating yourself up when that happens. I think that's really important. Otherwise, you just I feel like if you beat yourself up, you just end up going deeper into burnout instead of being able to turn it back around.
Yeah, exactly. For sure. And I think too, like not just keeping it inside, like sharing it with other people, talking with friends about it is really helpful to just get another perspective. And so they can share too, like, yeah, you're trying to do too many things at once, or like you're doing fine. You just need to like tweak this little thing here. But that can be helpful too, not to just like hide in a bubble.
Yeah. Yes. The accountability from people who know you really well. It can be really helpful. I've also noticed, at least for me, like sometimes people are wrong about what I can handle. So I think like also just knowing yourself and being able to kind of, as you do see, at what point do I start kind of spilling over? At what point is it too much? And just knowing yourself in that way, obviously like the feedback from the people around you who are seeing you is also really powerful. I just I have one friend in particular that I'm thinking of that's always like, oh, you're doing too much. I'm like, I'm doing like one thing. So, not all friends. Don't listen to anybody. Choose who has an influence in your life. But
I definitely get that.
Yeah, definitely like the feedback from people who are seeing you potentially burning out and those like negative emotions spilling over a little bit. That can be really powerful. Yeah,
I do think it takes a lot of trial and error, unfortunately. Like there's a photographer friend of mine who is a lot older than me, but she's, had a successful business for a while. And she even says like, it's an every year thing of like evaluating like, okay, how was this year? And like, how do I change for next year? And I think as her family grows, she's been setting more and more boundaries just to, have more family time and spend more time with her kids. But it's hard to do. Just, trial and error.
Yeah, that's a really good point too, that like we can talk about becoming a mom as a business owner, and you just don't know what's going to work for you until you get there. And everybody's so different. Like what works for you isn't necessarily what works for me. What works for me might like send someone else. My friend that always thinks I'm doing too much would send her into a tailspin, So
right.
Like it just depends on the person, and we can throw out all of these ideas and all of these tools, but really just being willing to experiment and try things and be honest with yourself about what's working and what's not working, and not beat yourself up, not judge yourself over any of it. Right. Like we're just out here doing our best, especially when we're trying to balance young kids and a business, especially a young business. It's a lot. It's a lot to do. And it's okay if it's not perfect. It's okay if it's not picture perfect. It's okay if you're not doing all the things. It's right.
Yes.
So on that note, I know you're very passionate about, I was going to say you're passionate about hustle culture, but you're passionate about not hustle culture, about not hustling yourself into burnout. So let's talk about what hustle culture is, and then tell me your thoughts on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man. Hustle culture, I think nowadays, I think it does get like a bad rap. I will say that I think in some life seasons and for some people, it's not a bad thing. Sometimes it's what you need to do in order to build your business. I think especially at the younger stages, it takes a lot to like build clientele and just get your name out there. It is really hard work. And I think it depends on your goals, like how quickly you want to get to the end goal, or are you okay with like taking it at more of like a steady plodding type of pace. But I think especially probably for a lot of moms that it's maybe, or if you just have a lower capacity, like everyone's so different. It's not always the solution, and it can be hard to like go against the grain with that and to not be caught up in the hustle culture. Just, to look different than everyone else too. It's easy to compare yourself and kind of see like, oh, this person is, just like way ahead of me. And like, how do I get there and how do I get there quickly? And everyone I think is on their own path, and you don't always know like what it took someone else to get there. Maybe they were also slow and steady. Maybe they got there quickly. It doesn't always matter sometimes. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I know, like when I was doing the stay-at-home mom and building a business thing, I would look at my like childless business owner, full-time business owner friends, and I was like you got you you got so much time, but here you are, like telling me that you're having a hard time building your business or whatever. Like, I'm like, but how? Like, I just have this really weird, like, mindset that like, if I had the time to hustle, I just would, and it would work. And like, everything would work out if I had more time, like that kind of, that kind of mindset. And I think that mindset is how we get into that hustle where we think if I just spend a little more time, if I just spend more of my energy, more of my time on this, then I will go faster. I will make it happen faster. And sometimes that's just not how it is. Like there are only so many hours in the day, but also only so many hours in the day will help you to grow. Am I making sense? Am I just rambling?
Yeah. No, totally. Yep. I'm following.
Like it's going to grow as quickly as it grows, and you have to put in the work. You have to put in the reps.
Yes.
But at a certain point, like there's that point of diminishing returns, right? Like you can only put so much time into something before it starts to not give you as much back for the same amount of time.
Yeah. Yep. No, I agree.
Am I making sense?
Yeah. Which is hard to
get on a tangent. I'm just like wait, are we still on task?
It's I think it's hard to define that point, right? Because again, it's so easy to get into the mindset of like,
and to notice
one more thing, and yes. But that's I think where like boundaries come into play, and knowing yourself and like how much you can handle and what's important to you. I think too, in the midst of hustle culture, we've kind of touched on this, but like keeping those goals in mind. And like, that's, I think, again, where I lost track this last season, was not having the right goals in mind. I think that would have helped kind of guide those triage decisions, and just knowing like what to prioritize and how much I can handle and what matters most and all those things.
Yeah. And I also think, tell me if you disagree, but I think that's also kind of the magic of motherhood and business ownership. If you have these like forced boundaries almost, like, it's not forced. We could spend all of our time working, but we have this desire to be with our family most of the time. Most of us have a desire to be with our family. So we have these kind of built-in bumpers, right? These built-in guardrails. And we are so motivated as mom business owners. I feel like that is the point of diminishing returns. Like we put in as much as we need to get as much back as we can, and then we stop. And that's, I think, something that's really magical about this balance of life and motherhood. And even though sometimes it feels like, well, if I just had a little bit more time, I could do so much more. I think we also can appreciate like, but what I'm putting in is giving me so much back. The little bit that I'm able to put in is giving me so much back. Yeah. And I think that's cool.
Yeah. Wow. That was really well said. It is such a value. I think like what I said before, how I didn't have a son and like all these things before I had a kid, I didn't realize the importance of like how valuable my time was, and like, oh, I actually can be a lot more efficient, than I thought I could be. And when you're kind of forced into that, like it just, you kind of learn on the go, and you're just able to kind of have the best of both worlds. It's good.
Yeah. And it's like, it takes time to learn it, right? Like you're not just automatically efficient. You have to kind of figure it out. And in those, especially in the early days when you're like not sleeping at all and everything hurts and you're just like take the time that you need to recover and to get baby sleeping and all of those.
Oh yeah. That's so important.
Yes. Yep. Don't expect yourself to grow your business while you're in those first 3 to 9 months. but it takes time to figure it out. But then after that, you got those magical bumper rails.
Yeah. Yep. It's such a gift. It's great.
Yeah. So tell me, what's a piece of advice or something that you've learned that makes balancing motherhood and entrepreneurship easier?
So this, I think, was surprisingly a hard thing for me to learn. But also like extremely valuable and something that I've looked back on a lot since then and helped to kind of guide my decisions. Over, I think the summer or fall, somewhere in there, I was listening to an audiobook called Purpose Fooled. It sounds as amazing as the title, or it is as amazing as the title sounds. Super helpful. And one of the things that they kind of got down to was they quoted, it's actually this passage from the Bible. It says, "There's nothing new under the sun." And basically kind of in this context was saying that, someone before me probably had a similar photography business and was doing really well in it. And that's great. And someone after me might have something similar. Basically saying that I'm somewhat replaceable in my business, to some extent, like we all have our unique things that we bring to the table. But at the end of the day, no one else can be Liam's mom. That's my son's name. And so that really got me. I was like, okay, like, yes, like my business is really important to me and like it has a place. But for me, like I'm Liam's mom and like that's such an important role. And like this is his childhood. And so it's helped me just like, be able to, prioritize that the most in my life and have my business work towards that goal of like being the best mom to him that I can be versus like the other way around and getting in the way of that. So that's been really impactful to me.
I love that so much. Well, thank you so much, Kellyn, for coming on the podcast and chatting with us about motherhood and balancing this crazy life that we're living. Kellyn, where can everybody find you and follow your beautiful work and hear more about balancing life and motherhood and business?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm probably the most active on Instagram. So you can follow me at Kellyn Grace Photo. And then my website is the same, kellyngracephoto.com. Either way, you can get in touch with me, shoot me a DM on Instagram, and we can chat about the hardships and the joys of motherhood and business and everything in between.
Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Wide Open. If you want more, head over to businesscoachsylvia.com/podcast for show notes and all the links and details mentioned in this episode. And if you're looking to connect with the Wide Open community more than once a week, be sure to follow along on Instagram at businesscoachsylvia. See you next week.